I think that truth is healing, right? And but truth can also be very painful. I believe that being together and building community has the potential to be painful and difficult. It's hard. It's not, I wish it was, all about being in the tent all day, but it's not. There's hardship, there's misunderstandings, there's also difference. We are all different. We're all humans and we all come from different backgrounds. And I think that acknowledging that difference or those differences is painful. And the only way that we can do that is through really showing who we are. So that's why I say that truth is healing. That when we really show up for who we are, what we stand for, as painful as it can be extremely healing for ourselves and for the collective of humans and beyond.
What if this is all just a dream?
My name is Julia Orquera Bianco. I was born and raised in Argentina and moved to Mexico in 2013, to LA in 2016. And I've been living in Cincinnati for 2 years. My piece is called Togetherness, and it's a 12 feet diameter installation as part of the Truth and Healing Artist Showcase. When I speak about my art, it's a bit difficult to describe it and to put it into one sentence. I believe that my art is a response to my personal experience of migration, my experience as a human on this planet, but also a response to the place that I live in, both in a more in terms of the environment and the nature aspect of it, but also kind of the social, political challenges that I go through as an immigrant. So depending on the subject that I want to approach is the medium. That's why I have lots of performance, which are basically an experience that I allow myself to have in a specific space, using my body as the instrument for building knowledge and understanding. But then there's also installation, and I think that thinking about installation, which is the case of Togetherness, is how do I provide for an experience for others? So this was really what Togetherness was about. Therefore, installation. Yes. To be selected for the Black and Brown Artist Grant Program was very impactful for me, both at a personal level and as a professional. Maybe in a more personal level, I feel and this is personal, but it's also social and cultural. I feel understanding or noticing that Cincinnati provides for these kind of opportunities for artists of color, in the genuine attempt to elevate these voices and these stories is so important. And it's so profoundly meaningful for us on this side. So to me, at a personal level, it's about recognition. And a professional level, of course, it implies many things. But one of them is to have the opportunity to do the kind of work that I really want to do and the resources for it. Understanding that a lot of my practice has to do with creating space for others. So I think it's a super important program. I hope that it stays, and I hope that more artists can take advantage of those resources. So Togetherness is the result of an entanglement, that's what I would call it, with folks who were part of a winter program that I created in the Clifton area and Burnett Woods. The first phase, I would say that Togetherness is the first of a two-phase kind of project. The first phase is the creation and implementation of a 3-month-long weekly program that was free and open to everybody. The program was focused on nature, awareness, art, and community. And it happened during the months of January, February, March, and part of April. The program came as a response to what I saw was a real need for community building during the winter months, which can be very isolating, and it can get us down because of the weather and other factors. And I really wanted to create an opportunity for people to voluntarily come in, and I didn't want money or access to be an issue as much as I could help it. So I worked with the Clifton Library. I worked with a group of collaborators, facilitators who came in and led nature walks. They led collective poetry sessions. And I am happy to say that I got to make friends, actually, and I just met remarkable people. So after that program, my question, and this is also a response to one of the latest, the last session, I would say, of the program, where we were looking at the transition from winter to spring, and kind of reflected on what we learned during the winter and what were our hopes for the spring. So one of the participants, Derek Beach, who had been coming almost every session since session, 5 or something. He's an amazing human, and we were making a collective drawing, and he wrote down Togetherness. And I'm like, that's a really awesome hope for the future. So that brought me to reflect on what it means to be together with other people and what it means to craft space for people to come together, because that was what the winter program was about. As an artist, the question kind of transferred to my practice. So the decision to create the tent is a response to that question. It's a way for me to process and give a possible answer to that question through crafting, literally crafting a space for others. So the tent is made out of large pieces of cyanotype fabric. One of the pieces we made collectively in one of the extra sessions that we created during the springtime. We made that in Burnet Woods, and the rest was made by me in my garden, but using branches collected in Burnet Woods and all sorts of plants that I have there. The tent is fully hand-sewn, so I sewed the whole thing by hand, part of the process, part of the craft. And it's a 12-inch diameter. No, 12-inch, no, I wish. It was a 12 feet diameter tent, a hexagonal tent. What you see when you go inside is a circle created by rocks. Those rocks are mostly rubble that I unearthed from my garden, which is also an art and life project at this point. And two semicircles with cushions. There are these artificial candles all around. And then in the center of the tent, you have a circle of candles, and inside that circle, there are two stacks of poems. Those poems were made collectively by the folks at Walk in the Winter during sessions led by Danny Clark, who's one of our facilitators. And in the center of the circle, you find a bowl with questions. the questions are invitations for us to keep reflecting on what involves togetherness, what it means to be together, what can happen, what is the possibility that bringing people together or that togetherness brings into our lives. So basically, that the tent is a space for people to come together and craft meaning too. Rest if they need to. I've been there in and out for the last couple days, and I've seen, and I've heard, and I've had like really meaningful conversations. And yeah, ultimately, the goal, which is ambitious, but why not, is for us to not only create collective meaning, but also make space for transformation. Cyanotype is one of the oldest photographic techniques that are out there. It involves chemicals, but fewer chemicals than most photographic or photosensitive processes. And basically is the mix of two solutions that create a photosensitive emulsion. You can utilize that emulsion to emulsify a surface, and then whenever you expose that to the sun, if there's like a high UV ranking or whatever level, and cover parts of that fabric or surface with objects that are opaque or translucent, that will partially or completely block the rays from the sun from hitting the surface. So this sounds very abstract, but bottom line, everything that the sun touches will turn blue when developed, and everything that the sun does not touch will stay the original color of the surface. The way to develop those exposed surfaces is to dip them in water or wash them to get rid of the extra emulsion, and then keep that in like a shaded space for 24 hours. So it takes a day for the whole process to settle. When I thought about Walking the Winter, the winter program, I thought about nature as already a community. So when I speak about a community, I'm not thinking only about the community of humans. I acknowledge that Burnett Woods, it's its own community of squirrels and trees and like bees and all sorts of like beings that exist there. I've been really interested in the intersection of my own human body and the body of the land with all these other communities that exist. And I've learned through time and reading and just being in nature that there's not only the possibility of like healing, which is like absolutely important, and it's part of togetherness too, but really of building a kind of like knowledge and understanding, which is experiential and therefore is like profound, can have profound impact on us humans if we are like open to that experience, to really spending time in nature without trying to control it, without trying to dominate it, just by understanding that we also, as part of the planet, we are also part of that community. So based on my experience, and it's by no means something that you can generalize on, already with the basis that nature is like really a big part of my own practice. I decided to offer as an invitation this idea of like, let's go out in nature and let's learn from her. And it's not only learning, again, through, the science, which is very useful and it's real, but also this aspect that is more ineffable, which is the experience, and sometimes it involves sacredness. So I'm always interested in those like intersections, kind of like the intersection of the human and the land, the intersection of the science and the sacred. Where are those spaces for expansion of meaning, expansion of understanding, and expansion of existence, right? So going back to your question, I think that it was important for me to create that invitation, and it's always important to me. I don't want to say to describe, but it's not because it's not that. But it's important to acknowledge that it is nature, the main character, in a way, in a very subtle way. But it's like underlying. It's underneath everything. It's underlying everything. If I think about truth and healing, I think that truth is healing, right? And but truth can also be very painful. I believe that being together and building community has the potential to be painful and difficult. It's hard. It's not. I wish it was, all about being in the tent all day, but it's not. There's hardship, there's like misunderstandings, there's also difference. We are all different. We're all humans and we all come from different backgrounds. And I think that acknowledging that difference or those differences is painful. And the only way that we can do that is through really showing who we are. So that's why I say that truth is healing. That when we really show up for who we are, what we stand for, as painful as it can be extremely healing for ourselves and for the collective of humans and beyond. I think that this installation captures my acknowledgement of how important being together is. How transformative it has been to me to expose myself to moments and and spaces and people that I am not familiar with. This is like one-on-one immigration, situation. Is like you're here, you don't know anybody, you don't know the land, but beyond that. Even creating the winter series was challenging for me because I was meeting people from everywhere and I didn't know them. It made me uncomfortable, but it also deeply transformed me. So I think that acknowledging how transformative that those experiences are for me and understanding the potential for transformation for like with a piece like this for other people, I think that's my truth. It's a very humbling thing, understanding that I can learn so much from everybody else, and I just have to stay open to it. If I had to think about how we come together or create togetherness beyond the tent or beyond the installation, anywhere we are, I would say, for those who would like to do that, I would say stay open and train your listening skills. We all have to learn to listen better. So as long as we're open and we are listening to what's happening around us and to others, I think we can all have a very transformational experience just by being in community. In terms of how my personal experience informs my work, specifically the installation, but also in general, I think I mentioned that being an immigrant or like really migrating first to Mexico and then to the States had huge impacts on my person, both like personally and professionally. I think migration is such a wild thing to do. There is loss, there is scarcity, and not only material, also emotional. But from that, there's also resourcefulness. In my case, the experience of migration brought the loss of my grandmother. So, I was already in Mexico, so that really shifted my practice, because with time, it allowed me to see what my family legacy was actually, how it looked like. And the legacy of like craft, labor, and migration as a family story are fundamental. And they are like, they exist, they are part of the fabric of my family. With Togetherness, now speaking about the installation, I decided to sew the whole tent by hand, because a lot of my work is very process-based and it's very labor-based. When I sew, I think about my grandmother and I think about my mother, and I think about this legacy of craft and like of making something out of something that either did not exist before or was not useful or was discarded. Which is part of the experience of migration, resourcefulness. How do we turn something that others discarded into something that we can use, right? That has a value to us. And that took me, going back to the sewing, that took me a very long time, many hours. And it really helped me, it grounded me in this understanding of crafting space, like literally and metaphorically crafting space. I think that every artist has a set of skills or techniques or strategies that they use to create their work. And mine is really going into the labor-based aspect of it that connects me to my roots. If there was something that I believe it's important for the audience to remember or to reflect on, is that to me, art is an act of generosity, and it's a gift. The best one is anyways, at least according to me. I believe artists are the people who weave meaning to the collective. It's important work, it's hard work, and it can create so much possibility for us as a society. So I want to think that in that sense, art is a gift, it's an act of generosity, but it's meant to be experienced by you. So come in, experience it, and then we can talk about what happened.